I see some new faces, some new names. Miriam, Del. I'm not sure how the name keeps going, but welcome, Miriam and Juan. Contreras. I love Spanish, even though I don't speak it. I can fake the accent, you know. But it's good to be here. Thanks to the Lighthouse. Tonight's class is called the 10 Sefirot and 10 Portals of Emotion. So when we talk about Sefirot, we're talking about these traits of God's character, his personality, his divine personality that he bestows in a microcosmic form to man. The human soul is a multi-layered composite of energy that corresponds to our mind, our hearts, and our bodies. Then there's actually two powers that are above the mind, which are called the makifim, which represent what are called the aura, or the he in ancient Greek. They represent the external powers of the soul that we've yet to access in our consciousness. Okay, so we have this set of traits we've been dealing with almost every class so far. This is, I think, the 11th or 12th in the series on Jewish meditation and the Kabbalah. And so we're going to continue our work, but we're going to get more specified as we go, which is the nature of learning in general in Torah and in Kabbalah especially, is we start with broad general concepts, and then we become more and more specific as we begin to integrate those larger concepts. So tonight, the idea of the portals of emotion. What does that mean? Well, the first series was called, 10 Windows on the Palace. And we explored our senses as portals of divinity, of the ability to see beyond our physical senses through eyesight, through hearing, through speech, through taste even, and smell. And we'll talk more about that perhaps tonight, maybe another night, because these teachings go deeper and deeper as we go deeper. And as we learn more, we experience more. And as we experience more, we need words to describe that. But I'm going to ask a question, and I want to leave the question hanging in the air. I don't want you to answer it, okay? I want you to think about it. And it's a simple question, really, but it's not. And the question is, where do expressions of emotions come from? Where do emotions come from? I asked this question in a class earlier here in Jerusalem, and people wanted to say, well, your heart. Well, that's nice. The heart is the seat of emotion. It's true. In Kabbalah, it's true as well. But it's very limited, the heart. The heart is a physical pump. It pumps blood around your body. So when you talk about the heart of the seat of emotions, it's kind of a very simple way of talking about an extremely important and deep concept, because the physical pump of the heart is not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the emotional energy sphere, which we assign, or the Kabbalah assigns, and God, of course, is the designer, that it assigns the heart as the place where emotions emerge into our being. But where do they come from? Where does my happiness come from? Where does my sadness come from? And all the range of emotions. So, with that said, we're going to look at some pieces of Torah and talk about them. But understand, when we talk about Sefirot, we're talking about all reality is emanating from these powers. God is an infinite being. He is a being. He's sentient. Sentient means like he feels, he exists, he's alive maybe a little bit more than we are, maybe a lot more than we are, right? And so we talk about if all existence, if Mount Everest comes from God, and so does Pluto, and so does Andromeda, and so does my old Chevy wagon. Well, where does it end? It doesn't end, right? And therefore we over expand the idea until it becomes almost meaningless. We don't want to do that. There's a tendency to do that actually in the learning of Kabbalah. People, oh, it's all from God, and that closes down the conversation, which is not very interesting. However, we talk about where do our emotions come from. We understand that they come from the Sefirot that are assigned to our torso. We call them the 7 traits of Za and Nukba, if you want to use that language. The small face that corresponds to Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. The right arm, the left arm, the heart, the right thigh, the left thigh, the organs of reproduction, etc. But how do those translate emotions? And why are those assigned emotions? We have the mental capacity. Of course, we align with our head, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. But the more you ask the question, the more you realize how absurd some of our answers are. Why am I happy? Well, a check came in the mail. That's pretty limited happiness. Or why am I happy? My wife is happy with me. That's a good one. Right? Or why are you happy? You had a new baby. Or you did a mitzvah that you never got to do before. Or, something good happened. That's all very limited happiness because it's all bound by the parameters of my needs. So that's just saying my happiness came from me. But that's not really what we're asking. When we say, where does my happiness come from? We have to answer that it's coming from a divine source in happiness. That there is this quality, this bank account in heaven that's huge and endless of joy. And if I tap into joy, I'm tapping in there. And the same thing with all the 7 traits. When I tap into love, people think, oh, I love you. It's almost like a possessive thing. It's my love for you. You have to receive it. It's, but really love is not mine to give. It's mine. It's when I experience it, it feels like mine, but say one wrong word and the love is gone. So how much of love is yours if it's down the road the minute you have an argument with somebody, which every young couple knows about? You fall in love and think it's a different universe, and then the first argument, you're back to this universe. Okay, so, and this is true with all emotions. You get angry, you hate the person. 5 minutes later, you make up, the anger's gone. Well, so how real is it? And again, where does it come from? Anger, by the way, is related in Kabbalah to the nose. That's why you see in all the old-time cartoons, when the characters get angry, their nose turns red. In Hebrew, it's called haron af, which literally means the heating of the nose. And so, again, we ask our question, where do emotions come from? Okay, so now we're going to be more specific. We say, well, Avraham said that the Kabbalah says that they come from these 7 divine traits that God bestows upon us in this microcosmic form called my soul. Okay, that's pretty good, It's a lot better definition. However, I'm still talking about very large spheres of energy and ideas that are still like God's traits. That's so abstract. That's so big. Where do I go with that? But we're gonna define this down. We're gonna crunch the numbers over here. Okay. So when we have an emotion, if we're connected to Hashem, we're going to say, why am I feeling this? Why is God sending me this emotion? Why do I feel fear suddenly when I make a left on Collins Avenue at 2 a.m.? Because I know that this neighborhood has some people in it that are doing stuff that maybe I don't want to be part of. Or maybe, I'm afraid because I know it's tax season. It's time to get all those receipts together. These are external reasons for fear. That's a very low form of fear. The big fear is there's a God in the world and he actually knows what I think and he feels what I feel and he's processing me back to me so I can have a consciousness. So that's awesome. This is like an awesome concept, an idea, but it's not an idea. It's a living being. So I have fear and awe of that being. Because wow, it's much greater and bigger than any movie or cartoon or myth or legend. Okay, so where's that awe? You wake up tomorrow morning, I don't have any awe, I just want to go back to bed, or I don't have any awe to get up and serve God. I barely can make a coffee to get to work. Where's my awe? It left me. Well, that's because it wasn't mine. Okay, it's not something we own. It's not something we possess. We have to, in Kabbalah, the first thing we have to understand is we are receivers. We are not takers. We don't grasp and hold. We receive and carry on and pass on. When you feel love, it's time to show love to others. When you feel mercy, it's time to show mercy for others. And when you feel awe of Hashem or awe of creation or awe of the ocean, then share the awe in whichever way that's appropriate for that experience. Then you're starting to tap into this idea that all these qualities, these powers have a divine root in what we call the traits of Hashem, the Sefirot. And so emotions, now we've tracked them back more specifically, that these are feelings. We call them feelings. Very nice. A feeling. I have a feeling. A feeling, it's an interesting thing when you ask yourself, as a therapist, I'll ask people, what do you think? And they'll say, well, I feel. It depends on my mood. I might say, I asked you what you think, not what you feel. And I might say to somebody, what are you feeling right now? And they'll say, well, I think. They're back in their head. You see, so feelings mean what down here in the emotive traits of the soul. When you say, what am I thinking? You're talking about ideas in the mind that are detached from emotion. Of course, they're not completely, but when we're trying to isolate what you're thinking or what you're feeling, we need to be very specific, and people are not. That's part of why, we have to go to therapists to understand ourselves better, and professors and Kabbalists to hear our truth spelled back to us, because we're not specific enough. What am I thinking right now? Well, I'm listening to Avraham, but I'm not sure, and I got a pizza on the way, and the sun is shining on Miami Beach. All right, that's good. But those thoughts, am I thinking them or they're being sent to me? This is very important when you want to get to the higher levels of meditation, because if I ask this question, where are my thoughts come from? Like, where are my emotions coming from? Wow, I'm in the big confrontation here. Either my thoughts are mine or they're sent to me by various places in the cosmic realm. Maybe from my good side and maybe from my bad side. Now, Rabbi Nachman says, Miforash and Likutei Moharan, Your good thoughts are an aspect of your good inclination, your Yetzer Tov, we call it, the good urge. When you have a good, and your good urge, by the way, he says, is an extension, an aspect, bechina, of the holy soul behind your good inclination, the spark of God, which is connected into the collective called Shekhinah. So when you have a good thought, you're actually having an experience of something extremely holy that's come down through the channels of consciousness into the language that you will understand them and be able to translate it back to yourself and say, no, I feel good today. I want to call grandma, take her out for lunch. That's a good thought. She might say, I can't go, but at least you had the thought, you acted on it. And the same is true with negative thoughts. The negative thoughts are rooted in what we call the evil inclination or the evil urge, the Yetzer Ra, which we assign their place is in the external thoughts. Greed, lust, those are feelings, but they're based on thoughts. Excess, exaggeration, falsehood, all these what we assign as negative traits. We assign the urge to do them or act on them as the evil urge. Okay. But all of a sudden, we've got a very nice, simple way of looking at life. My good thoughts are from God, and my bad thoughts are from wherever else I don't want to deal with. I do have to deal with them because they'll come back and demand attention. But the same is true with emotions. We have positive emotions and negative emotions. People are sad, people are depressed, right? A lot of people depressed, a lot of people taking medication. Rabbi Nachman says the main healing power in the universe is joy, which is obviously the opposite of depression. Now, in my profession, I have to take depression very seriously, even though I try to laugh a lot. When people are depressed, it's a serious issue. But if I ask, where's my depression from, Rabbi Nachman will tell you, sadness is a sin. Now, you go tell a depressed person that their sadness is a sin, they're going to be very upset with you. You cannot say that because it's almost like you're putting down their feeling. No one wants to hear that. I sinned and therefore I'm sad. I'm sad because my girlfriend left me, my grandpa passed away, my stock account dropped 500%. I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons people are sad. But you see, we attribute the feeling to the experience without asking, well, maybe it's good that grandpa finally got to leave this world. He was in pain for 20 years. And maybe it's good that my girlfriend left me because she's not even Jewish or she's not even interested in what I'm into. Who knows? We don't know the total picture and see that. So, but when we answer the question, where are my emotions and where are my thoughts coming from? And I answer it affirmatively that it's from Hashem, then all of a sudden the lens opens up, the lens of consciousness, the lens of self-perception. Okay. Now, what does this have all to do? Okay, we're talking about emotions. These 10 Sefirot are portals of emotion. In other words, emotions emerge from a higher realm and come down to a lower realm, which is where we are. Now, with all that said, we're gonna learn a little piece from Likutei Moharan, and then we're gonna come back to some more specific explanations about sounds and emotions and vowels and letters. And then we're going to do some meditation and talk about it. Okay, so in Torah Samech Vav 66, the first section, in the fourth segment or chapter, if you will, he writes, Velamshich nekudot ela otiot, to draw vowels to letters. Now remember, Last week we learned, and I try to do this, if you'll notice, that every class is built on the previous lesson. There's the developmental structure in our minds. We create ideas from building on smaller ideas, etc. It's a stagnant consonant, kaf. If I just say the name of the letter kaf, I'm already adding a vowel to it, the kamatz, or the patach, okay, which is the ah sound. Once you give the vowel to the letter, you move the letter. So that's a very simple way of breaking down this understanding of how energy moves in terms of the Merkava. However, and by the way, there's many levels of Merkavot, of chariots that connect all worlds. But now, what does he tell us? That to draw these vowels, and the Zohar, the Tikkuni Zohar says the vowels are like the wheels that you put on the car. You cannot move your car, your chariot, until you get the wheels on. So what are the wheels of the letters? The vowels. To bring the vowels to the letters, how do we do that? Through our longing and our desire, we create movement. Longing and desire for anything creates movement towards the idea of that thing, whatever it is. If you have desire for money, then you're going to actually draw the vowels to the letters that create the ideas that lead you to money, hopefully, if that's God's will for you to have money. And by the way, in Judaism, money isn't bad. It's called klipat noga. It's half good and half bad, and we get to make the choice what it becomes. So high spiritual people like to say the poo on money, and low people like to say, oh, money's the main thing, and neither is really true. It's right in the middle. We get to decide what we do with money. Okay, besides, so now we've learned something very important. It's our longing that draws the vowels to the letters. That means that I by wanting something, I'm generating a union. I'm generating the union of words into ideas that are going to lead me to whatever my goal or the thing that I want is. You know, I deal with a lot of people that want to get married, and you know, it's a funny thing. A lot of people say they want to get married, but they really don't want to get married. They would like to be married. It's a big difference. And you know, this is what I've been doing for 30 years. I meet people, I ask, especially guys, do you want to get married? Sure, it sounds great. Yeah, I want to get married. But when you ask them about what they're willing to do to get married, you come up with a very short list, you know. Now, women are generally, the rabbis say that the women want to be married, the women, you know, that don't want to be divorced, that the nature of women is to be married because they understand they need stability to bring children into the world. It's part of the whole way we're designed. And it has nothing to do with feminism or genderism or anything. It has to do with our bodies doing different things. And a woman needs security to protect herself while she's 9 months pregnant and giving birth and raising a child. And a man's job is to provide that, whether we like it or not, and whether she likes it or not. Okay, so, but the point is that most people will say they want something, but they really don't want to work for it. Or they like the idea of the thing, but they don't, what's happening is that they don't have the true longing for the thing. They don't have that true kisufim, is the word he uses here, that desire for the thing. Heshik. Heshik is another word for longing or desire. Because if you really want the thing, then you are going to generate thoughts that lead you to it. And the thoughts are made of what? Letters that have vowels. that create words that join together and make sentences that create ideas. Oh, I'm 41 years old and I'm not married and I don't have any kids. I better do something there before my shelf life is gone and they're taking me down off the shelf. I better do something here. What do I do? I'll call the shadchan. I'll call the rabbi. I'll go to the bar. I don't know. It depends on where you shop, But remember, where you shop is what you get. Okay. But the point here, of course, is not about our unclarity about what we want, which is very important. It's a very important thing. Because if we're not clear what we want, we end up with nothing. God wants us to be clear with him, and he's clear with us. I want to do this mitzvah called Pru Uravu. I want to do the mitzvah. A man needs to leave his mother and his father and his mother, and attach himself to his wife. And you notice it's the leaving of the parents that precedes the attachment to a wife. And in our dysfunctional generation, unfortunately, a lot of people are still so attached to their parents, they don't have the freedom, the personal freedom to actually attach to another human being and build a family. It's very sad. Something I talk about a lot with people because it's part of my job. But in other words, but it's a very fine example of what we're talking about. That if I have the true desire for the thing and it's clear and it's powerful, it's going to make my own mental word processor create the ideas that are going to lead me to it. And it's true for everything. Okay, and he goes on to tell us, mitzvah. Okay, in this case, getting married, building a family, or in any mitzvah, when a person longs to do it, to do the mitzvah, or anything that's in the boundary of holiness, which anything good can be described as being within the holy, anything good. That a Jewish person wants to do it, which is an aspect of nukudot akesef, which is from Shira Shirim, the nukudot, it literally means the silver points. Now, what are silver points? Is it a form of jewelry? Is it a tiara? What is a silver point? Shira Shirim, of course, deals with everything in a metaphoric sense of the relationship between God and the Shekhinah and Am Yisrael, because we are the carriers of Shekhinah. Okay, and so these points of silver are actually points of longing. He explains, through our longing and our desire, nasim nukudot, we create the vowels. It's an amazing idea. I'm sure they don't teach this if you get a PhD in linguistics. They're not going to teach you this as clearly and directly as Rabbi Nachman. Through your longing and your desire, you are making vowel points. And that, as I've already said a couple times, leads to the thinking that leads to the goal. Now, it's impossible to do anything in this world if not for the sake of your desire for it. People will, if you don't have desire, you won't do anything. You stay in bed all day. And he gives another example. Like even to speak, just to speak words, it takes longing to be heard or longing to accomplish whatever the speech is about. If I don't have the desire to talk, I'll be quiet all day. But so first we need to have desire to speak. Okay, and any other activity, if he doesn't have any desire to begin with to do it, he will certainly not do it. Therefore, everything in holiness that a person needs to do, like to visit a righteous person, or any other holy thing, put on, tefillin, giving tzedakah, cooking for Shabbat, whatever it is, We have to have desire to do it in order to accomplish. Desire is the fuel of the system called a human being. First, the thing they give you is, and you'll see, this is an interesting language. There is no subject to this sentence. Notnim lo, it is given to him. He receives, he's given desire, which should immediately trigger our thinking, wait a minute, who's giving it? Avraham just said it came from the Sefirot, the traits of God that are condensed into man. Well, that in order that through that desire we do the thing. So what do we now? Let's try to take this paragraph. We learned one paragraph. It's not much. It's a huge Torah, but it's a lot. Believe me. Because when we live these ideas, you suddenly see how true they are. We don't pay attention. We're not trained to pay attention to such subtleties of language and vowels and consonants and ideas and desire to do something good or otherwise, God forbid. We're not trained to pay attention. And this is part of really what the Torah wants us from us. Pay attention, because paying attention, which nowadays I think is called mindfulness, we end up paying attention to something much, much higher, which we call doing the will of Hashem. However, for our purposes, let's go back now. We have this idea of emotions, that emotions come from these traits, but now we're telling that the emotions are given the desire, which is the chief emotion. It's the beginning of all emotions, is longing, desire for something. Wanting is the first emotion. In the tree of life, we have 10 Sefirot. Where does wanting fall out? Well, it's associated with Ratzon, which is will, which is in the Keter, in the crown, which is in the transcendental level. That is, the crown is something you wear on your head. Your desire is actually something that you wear above you. You know, you walk into the shuk here in Jerusalem, during the day, you see on everybody's face, they have this acquisition energy. Everybody's trying to get something. It's on their face. They're going either to buy something or to sell something or to meet somebody. And the minute the business day's over and the stores close, everybody's face changes. What's going on? Why are their faces changing at 5 or 6 or 7 or whenever the stores close? Because their desire changes. Their will changes. And you have to pay attention to that in ourselves first, but it's easy to see on others. They lose that need to acquire or to do, to sell or to buy. And then they're like sababa. Everybody's laid back more. It's much more pleasant after the workday's over, right? Why? Because we move from this level of wanting, we're moving down into another level. We're moving into thought level, which is, what's the wisdom? What am I going to do tonight? What am I going to learn? Am I going to go to the minyan? Am I going to go with my friends? What am I going to do tonight? Am I going to paint a painting, write a poem? You start to think these thoughts about what you're going to do. You're actually exploring for new desire. Where is my desire right now? And so you see, we trade desire from one desire to another, to another, to another. And it comes right down the tree of life, according to the 10 Sefirot, as they're laid out, mapped out for us. And I've repeated a million times, and I'll probably have to repeat them 10 million more. That's okay with me. Right? So you're going to come from the mental ideas of what you might want. And then you're going to say, oh, really, what I want to feel loved. Because every human being wants to feel loved. Okay, how's that going to happen? Well, I'll call mom, That's the default option for most people, because that's the easiest source of love, usually. Not always. Some of us were lucky to have mothers like that. Not everybody does, unfortunately. It's almost a cliche, but it's not so simple anymore. Okay, but let's say you don't want love, you want strength. I need power. I want to go to the club and work out and lift weights or run, or then I need gvura, et cetera, et cetera. We're coming down the tree. Or let's say I want to experience something beautiful. I'm going to go to the beach and look at the coast and catch the waves and smell the salt and the air, et cetera. That's already the level of the beauty of Tiferet. Okay, so you see that we're coming down the tree of life. We're shopping for emotion, which is really trying to get new desire, new heshik, which Rabbi Nachman just told us is going to pull the vowels to the letters to get us there. And it's done through our thinking. Oh, I want to go to the beach and just chill out, have a beer. Okay, fine. Immediately your mind starts thinking, how am I going to do that? Oh, I got to go get my car. Oh, no, I don't have a car. I got to go get a cab. Oh, no, it's too expensive. Oh, well, maybe I'll get on my bike. No, whatever your thought pattern is, you've already started to drag vowels to consonants to create words and to create ideas that lead you to your goal. And it goes on and on and on. And this is the way and it happens very quickly, as most of us know. We arrive at our ideas very quickly on how we want to get what we want to get. But in Kabbalistic meditation, we need to stop that automaticness. Okay? We need to stop jumping to conclusions about what we want and start asking questions. What does God want? What do the people that are important to me want from me? You want to be a father? Well, you better care about what your kids want. If you don't, then you shouldn't be a father. Chas v'shalom. But still, every parent knows this. Okay. So what happens? We have 5 primary vowels, which are 5 primary sounds. There are actually 10 vowels, but the 5 primary ones are mixed in to create the other 5. Okay? Now these 10 vowels are arranged exactly according to the 10 Sefirot. So I'm gonna if you have a paper and pencil, it's good to write it down. Whatever maybe you don't need this, you can look in Rabbi Kaplan's books. It's laid out for you in Kabbalah and meditation. He lays it out. It's also written in other books, not in English, but for our purposes, just to have it in front of us. The keter is the O sound. It's not ah, and it's not O, it's O. It's like like awesome, right? That's the vowel called kamatz, which is a bar with a little teardrop beneath it, right? See? Bar, teardrop beneath it. That's the kamatz. And that's keter. That's the transcendental sound. And we'll see how that works out. And patach is ah. That's chokhmah, wisdom. The vowel of wisdom is ah. And the divine name of chokhmah is Yah. Just like the Rastafaris say, but they say Jah. But in Hebrew, it's not the J sound, it's the Yud sound, right? Yah. And that's the name of God for wisdom. And then on the other side, Bina, you have A, which is Seri, the 2 dots that are one next to the other. That's A, right? If you're Canadian, you know what that means. You use it all day long, right? A. But the A sound is the idea of Bina, understanding. Hey, I gotcha. Right? Awe is like awesome. It's above you. And that's why kamatz is related to the keter. It's that which is above you. You look at an awesome mountain, like awesome, right? That sound is actually a channel of your feeling. When you see that, you're a surfer and you see that 20-foot wave, you're like, awesome. I got to get out in the wave, right? But that emotion is actually being channeled through the concept in your brain. It happened very fast, called awe of a wave, because I'm a surfer and I want to catch that baby. For a person who doesn't surf, they might not experience awe of the wave. Of course, you can, you see some of these waves. You don't have to be a surfer to be in awe of the wave. It's pretty outrageous what some people try to ride out there today. But now you see that the sound is reflecting the emotion of a perception. I'll repeat that. The sound is a channel of the emotion that's built on a perception, like awe or understanding. Hey, I got that. Or in the case of wisdom, aha. You know what they call the aha experience? Why does that come from? Because it's the same idea. You got a new idea. Aha. That means something clicked in your brain. Right? And so now, when I have that aha experience, I'll understand, that's coming from wisdom because I know that vowel. And this is the way we work it. This is the way we understand the vowels in this whole process of building our sensitivity to sound and to letters and to Hebrew and to, ultimately the Merkavah. Then you come down further into the emotional traits. You have the vowel that we call segol, 3 dots, 2 on top, 1 below, as in shekel, right? That sound shekel has to do with chesed. The S sound has to do with chesed. Chesed, it has the same vowel. And so chesed, which is loving kindness, how do you see it? Where do you see it in your language? Or even if it's not love, it's liking something. I think about the time when we were kids, we'd go to the doctor. I don't know about nowadays. I don't go to doctors now anymore. It's too dangerous. They put stuff up your nose, But we used to go to the doctor. They put a little wooden stick in your tongue and go, right? He wants to check out your tonsils. But it's funny, but really, the ideas of these vowels commuting or translating our emotions into speech, you'll see it a lot in your interactions. For example, the vowel for Tiferet, the heart, is O. Oh. Now, when you inflect the vowel O, there's a lot of ways you can shape that sound. Oh, meaning I got you, I understand. Oh. Or it could be, oh, now I understand. Or, oh, that now I get it. So the O sound is flexible. It can be shifted. It can be shaped according to your emotion. And now Gevura, the left arm, the power source, is a shva, which is just 2 dots, one above the other, which is a truncated, sorry, that's a fancy word. I don't get to use too much, except here on Lighthouse. It's cut off. The vowel shva is it's just cut. It's not it's not it's not o, it's not oo, it's just shva. It's a cut short vowel that really usually blends with the next vowel or the next letter in any word. But that's gevura. Because gevura is this blocking power. Right? The power to block, to say no. And you'll see if someone comes, like, what happens if you're standing in line, someone gives you a potch from behind, or a little push, a little shove, even unintentional, doesn't matter. What happened? You put up resistance immediately. That's that resistance. Where does resistance come from? Gevura. So you see the sound that we make, again, reflects the nature of the quality of those Sefirot. Now you see, it's just too perfect for any human being to figure all this out, right? That's the beauty of what happens when Eliyahu Navi is your teacher. Who Eliyahu Navi was the teacher for a lot of big people, that came before us, like the Baal Shem Tov. He had several teachers actually, and the Arizal, and etc. That's why these traditions that these traditions are we hold by them, because people have no agenda to make things up to impress people. Judaism is not about becoming a guru, God forbid. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate your concept, your comment, and Ariel. Yeah, that's great. But what's really beautiful about this is that when you get in touch with the sounds, then you listen to music. Wow. Because music is when you take the sound and you manipulate it to your emotion in a more specific way. And then when you hear a love song, you hear how the singer shapes the sound to communicate love or any emotion. Okay. Now, coming down the tree of life, we have three more vowels. We have E. E is Netzach, the Sefirot of Moshe Rabbeinu, the idea of the right thigh. The right thigh is the power thigh. You have two legs. Most people, their right leg is more powerful than their left one. So that's why when we walk, we push with the right thigh first. The idea of pushing is going into battle, right? That's why it's called Netzach. Netzach is victory. It also means eternal. But so when you push with your right thigh, and you'll notice when people kick, they'll often almost always kick with their right leg first. It's an aggressive thing, but the power of Netzach is aggressive. And so it's E is the sound that goes with it. E. And if you listen to people when they say E, or not when they say E, most people, it's not a word, but when the vowel E, where does it appear in words? In Hebrew, E is oftentimes related to me, I want to say, actually, Sheli, mine. Achoti, my sister. It's about me, right? And even the word me in English is still flowing with that energy of mine, me, right? It's possessive. So when you're aggressive, you're basically in your deal. You're not really thinking about everybody else around you. And this is the sphere of Moshe Rabbeinu, because he had to be, look, what he did, nobody could do. To bring 3 million Jews across the desert into the promised land, nobody could do that. Even he at the end, he stopped at the gate, right? But I mean, what a war that Moshe had to fight to get those 3 million people out of Egypt and across the desert and into Israel. It's an absurd notion, really. If you think about it today, you can't get your family in the car to go to the beach. It's too much work. But really, so this sound E is also, it reminds me of, some of you must have seen, those old comic book covers, Batman, Superman. What do? They put these funny sounds that are corresponding to what's going on in the picture. Batman's saving somebody and Superman's flying, and they put these little bubbles with vowels essentially in them. E, ah, arg, oh. All of these are emotions that are being turned into vowels that any kid who reads the comic book is going to know these things. Now, the last two are very similar. The kibbutz, which is 3 dots on an angle, like this, right? The kibbutz is lashon kibbutz, the gathering. It's a gathering of 3 dots, and it's the oo sound. And then the last one that we're going to deal with is the oo, which is called the melafum. It's also oo, but it's oo. It's a deeper, longer sound of oo. Now, again, this can be turned into ooh, like ooh, those leftovers smell. You open up the refrigerator. Or it could be ooh. It's a sound of pleasure. And where is it located? The sexual organ. I don't think I need to be more clear than that. Ooh. So it could be pleasure, or it could be the opposite of pleasure, disgust. Ew. Okay. And so those two vowels are very related. It's very hard to find a distinction. Just for our historical understanding, there was a fellow in the time of the Rambam named Ben Asher. Now, Ben Asher is credited with passing on to the modern Jewish world the traditional way we say letters and vowels. Ben Asher was like the Rambam himself, was partly in Egypt and also Spain, and his tradition is the one that the rabbis of all the generations since, which is 1,000 years, who they hold by, because it's very important. If you don't get the right sound with the right vowel, your people aren't going to understand you. So there has to be consistency in the interpretation of language for people to communicate. We all have to agree that a bet is be and a pay is pe, etc. Otherwise, our language falls apart, which probably is exactly how Hashem caused the Dor Flaga, the generation of Nimrod, which Avraham Avinu was a young man at the time, when they built the Tower of Babylon, and God confused all the languages. How did he confuse the languages? Everybody spoke an ancient form of Hebrew then, one language. I'm not going to say it's exactly the Hebrew that we speak today, because that would be problematic. But they spoke an ancient form of Hebrew, and then all of a sudden, when the curse came down, and it was a curse, but it was a curse to protect Abraham and the Jewish people, all of a sudden the people couldn't understand each other. And that caused the dispersal of the nations unto the world. Right? Everybody lived in this Sinar Valley, which is, you could go there today. I believe, maybe you don't want to. I think it's it's somewhere in Iraq. But so the way God confused the languages, he just changed the vowels and the consonants. So if you speak French, you have a different sound for Abba, father, and you have a different sound for Ima, and a different sound for money. And you hear what I'm saying? It's very simple. That you just confuse the connection between the vowel and the consonant, and you change the whole language. Okay. And so the final Sefira, after Yesod, the pleasure zone, if you will, if you want to relate to it that way, which can also be inverted, is the final Sefira, of course, Malchut. Kingship has no vowels, which should tell me something. What? We've been going down the list. Each vowel, each Sefira, each quality, each trait has its sound that sounds like something of that quality. Ah, aha, oh, ooh, e. Right? Of course, it's all dependent on your inflection, but that's exactly where your emotion is flowing from at that time. But in Malchut, kingship, there's no vowels, utter silence. And my friends, that, as Rabbi Nachman tells us, the appropriate way we begin prayers by saying nothing, by being quiet, by understanding we are standing before the entire universe. When you speak to God, you're speaking to the entire universe, because he's alive and active in everything. And the only appropriate response to such a great audience is utter silence, right? Okay. So we don't give it vowels. But the truth is that Sefira called Malchut, kingship, it can receive any vowels. That the Yud K Vav K of that name, because every Sefira has its own Yud K Vav K and these vowels associated to it. So if you take the Yud K Vav K of Chesed, it's Ye, and then He, and then Ve, and then He. We don't say it out loud. That's why I say and then, because we break the letters apart. We don't want to say the divine name out loud with those collection of vowels, because it's too, we don't say God's names unless we're in the midst of very intense prayer. But kingship, there's no assigned vowel, because it could be anything according to what's happening at that moment in that person's life and in their relationship to Hashem and the world around him. And there's many different, combinations that can be applied to those letters. So we're not going to go into that now. That's another level of specificity that we don't need for what we're going to do. Okay, what we're going to do now is first look at the time, because I already got the time wrong once tonight. I have 1:10. Is that correct? So that would put you at 7:10 in Miami, right? I hope we're doing okay. Okay. Now, I made a few other little examples to give us another handle on these ideas. One is like when you take one letter, any letter, and you add a vowel to it, you give it meaning. How so? For example, you have the letter Lamed. Now, Lamed is just a letter. It has a shorish intention of limud or lomed because it's the name Lamed has those same letters. But that's already association through the name of the letter and its consonants. But the letter Lamed, you want to turn it into a word, add a vowel to it. Add the vav, or with the cholam, the dot on top, it becomes lo, his. Lo means his. Asher lo, that is to him. Ha'ochel shelo, right? It's his food. Now, lo, that's lamed vav. Let's say I take out the vav and I put in aleph, that means lo, means no. It's a different inflection. Because in Hebrew, when you talk about like ochel shelo, a bayit shelo, you don't emphasize you don't put the what's called the dagesh, the emphasis on the vav itself. You put it on the lamed, lo, ochel shelo. But if I say, do you want to go to Mars? No. Then your inflection changes. And so it's the same word, it's the same sound, but because that little emphasis going from on the lamed to the vowel changes the entire meaning. Another example, let's say we take away the vav, the o sound, and we add the yud, li. Oh, again, we got this concept we just had earlier of mine. Li means to me. Yesh li. It's to me. Right? And then if I change the yud, which is a vowel, a yud is also a vowel. It's the chirik, it's the point, one little point. I change that to a hey. It becomes la, to her. And so the meaning changes again. So you see that this application of vowels to consonants is not simple. Oops, sorry, folks. It's not simple. But the subtlety is beautiful because one little sound changes all our intentionality. And this is very important in Kabbalah, especially in Kabbalistic meditation and davening. Because if my intention and my sound are not unified, I haven't caused the unification of language, which is malchut, speech, and in my mind, which is chokhmah bina dat, I haven't caused the proper union. And in my yeshiva, Nar Shalom in Jerusalem, they're very makpid about how you say things. They're very makpid, much more than a regular yeshiva, because they understand the intentionality is expressed through the proper pronunciation, which for an American, they love making. I'm the American guy there for 27 years. I'm the one and only American department, right? And they make fun of my accent all the time. And even though I've been there all that time, because it's very hard to take the American way of saying things out of the mouth, because the Hebrew is a guttural language, and Americans speak with the forward part of their apparatus of Americans mostly speak with the palate, the lips, and the tongue, whereas in Hebrew it's mostly guttural. ah, ha, hey, ha, the deeper sounds. Whatever. It's funny to listen to. I'd much rather hear an Israeli speak English than an American speaking Hebrew. Because Israelis, they're fun when they speak English. Okay, that's a preference. Next. So we learned about the Nukudot Kosef. Let's go back to that for a second. Rabbi Nachman's telling us that these silver points are actually the depositories. This is very important and very deep. The silver points, what he called the Nukudot Kesef, which is from Shira Shirim, are actually the depositories of desire. Well, how does this get played out in real time? That means what we want to do in our Jewish in our Kabbalistic meditation, we need to start seeing the vowel points with the letters. Because the letter is, again, it's the carrier, but the emotion is the driver, is in the vowel. So when I visualize Yud, K, Vav, K without vowels, I don't really have any wheels yet. It's not moving. But once I put the vowels in, and there's many ways, as we said, about that you can put vowels to Yud, K, Vav, K, I'm giving movement. And that movement, where is it? It's here in the heart, folks. It's the movement of energy through the heart. And that's what makes our heart start to open. That's one way. It's not the only way. If you think about the greatness of Hashem, your heart's going to open eventually. But even on the simplest level, the graphic of seeing Yud with a dot beneath it and Hey with a dot beneath it, I know that it's already, those four dots mean that this is the Yud K Vav K of Netzach, the power of the right thigh, the power of motion, and all the multiple associations ring through, just stream through your brain. And that heats up your heart. Because thinking is movement. We don't realize it, but it's language movement through the mind causes heat to come down and open the heart. The heart is like a rock, for most of us. And we want to heat that up and open that up. And that's where Rabbi Nachman says the breast lovers need to be, right? We want to turn the word breast love becomes lev basar, the heart of flesh, not a heart of stone, a feeling heart, a heart that experiences the emotions that are happening around you. If you're a good teacher, which I assume some of you are, or a good salesman or a good anything, you need to be able to feel where other people are at. Now here on this forum, it's a little difficult across the ocean and on Zoom. It's much different when you're in the room with somebody, because that's where the soul power is bouncing around the room. So we need to pay attention to other people's emotions to be more effective in whatever we do. You're sitting at your desk and your boss comes in, you need to feel where he's at before he opens his mouth, because then you can anticipate him and be a good employee. You get that coffee there before he asks for it, you're a champ, But whatever the case may be. However, we have to open our hearts. We have to do the work to clear out the blockages that give us that sensitive feeling, that empathy, that ability to feel other feelings around us in order to be more effective. So that's what we're going to work on tonight in our meditation. We're going to do a meditation that's going to follow the paradigm we learned tonight. And by the way, what we've been learning tonight, of course, obviously is coming from the Hebrew source. But the principles still apply to all languages. Right? You're not going to have the same, again, consonant-vowel connection that we have through Hebrew. But all languages have consonants and vowels. And so the emotion and the inflection is still going to parallel the state of the speaker at the time of his expression. That's important. All right. In graduate school, we learned something called a little bit. We learned about what's called psycholinguistics, which is a very fascinating subject. People get a whole PhD in it. I couldn't be bothered. Too much to do. But psycholinguistics is a very interesting thing. What is it based on? The idea that your perception of the universe is based on the language you speak through. So some of you speak Spanish, English, Hebrew, whatever it is. You're filtering experience through your language. And so your experience of life is language rooted. Psycho, the mind, linguistics, the collection of sounds that you use to express. But before we ever start to speak, we're already receiving as babies. When our parents talk to us in Italian, it's different experience than when they talk to you in German, obviously. And that affects the person's entire ability to communicate, excuse me, and receive and give information in the world. So it's another thing that's interesting to pay attention to. Because, we live in a multicultural society, and we just assume that, it's our nature. It's funny about people. We assume that everybody sees things the way we do. It's just like it's obviously it's an immature and oversimplified perception of life that everybody's thinking things the way I do. We have to train ourselves to understand people are not looking at the world the way you are. They're looking at the way they look at the world, and it's been cultured into them through a lot of different factors. One is their language. But if you're a multilingual person and you speak several languages, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. If you go down to a certain neighborhood in Miami, you need Spanish. And there's many dialects of Spanish and many subtleties and nuances. The way you're received will be depending on your receiving them. I live in a multicultural place called Israel where you have, if you just sit on the street in Jerusalem, you can hear 10 languages in about 3 minutes. Literally. Because you'll hear English, Hebrew, Arabic, French, Spanish. What else do we hear? Russian, Ukrainian. All this sitting at a bus stop. And so, but I always wonder, like, what's it like to think about the world through German or Ukrainian? It's a rough languages. I mean, their history is a little rough too, obviously. But, I think the languages are teaching us a lot about the people's state of mind. And I don't want to get off onto, I don't want to get not PC about this, but I think everybody can draw their own conclusions. If the principles of psycholinguistics are true, we need to all go back to speaking Hebrew to be godly. But that's a little bit outside our imagination at the moment. We'll see what happens with the upcoming decades of the Messianic era about that. However, there are groups of people, actually, I have students and clients in the South in America who are Christians that want to learn. They're preparing, they want to convert. And a lot of them started out their journey towards Judaism by wanting to learn Hebrew and learn about the holy letters. They understand that the letters are depositories of wisdom, and the vowels are the way we move wisdom around and ideas. Okay. So let's take a break, a few minutes, do what you got to do. Then we're going to come back and do a meditation. And, each person will choose his level. Okay. So we're going to get comfortable. You know, having the right chair is important in meditation. If our goal is not to be distracted, some chairs just have this power of distraction. So everybody, let's relax. Let's relax and begin to breathe. Inhaling through the nose, pausing when your lungs feel full. Then exhaling as long as you can comfortably, and pausing again with empty lungs. Then we begin again. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. These pauses are not for nothing. They help us to become aware of the nature of breathing, the gift of breathing. So whenever we pause in our breath, we stop time. We stop external perception. The entire organism of a human being focuses on breathing. Because if the pause without breathing is too long, well, we know what happens. But we know inhaling is life, force from the highest realms, and exhaling is the removal, something of the taste of death. Receiving life, discarding death. Allow yourself to experience the anxiety of not breathing. Just a moment of the anxiety of not inhaling or exhaling. Notice if the screen on your mind is clear. A large rectangle in front of you. Maybe it's the size of a mountain. Maybe it's the size of an auditorium. The screen in your mind can be as large as you want to make it. It can be cluttered or it can be empty. But we are going to proceed to climb the ladder of traits the Eitz Chaim, tree of life, through the rungs of sound. As we breathe, we're going to see the two-letter name with the appropriate vowels. Now, as we see these letters, we also want to see the vowels attached to them. Now, it might sound difficult, especially for those who are not too fluent in Hebrew. It's okay. You do the best you can. Whatever you can do is good. Inhaling life. We prepare to exhale power on the conduit of breath, the power of the name that we're going to say will exude from us, flow out of us, and enter the world for the sake of the world. So this first place, this first rung on the ladder is Yud, Hey, with no vowels. Just inhale Yud and Hey, pause, and then exhale, but there's no vowel, so you don't know what to say. Well, we need to experience not knowing what to say. So the name Yud and Hey is inert. It's standing in the parking lot. Nothing's moving. But it corresponds to the king. Malchut, kingship. The king is silent because he must listen to his subjects. Inhaling. Yud and Hey. See them in your mind's eye again. See them as three-dimensional with fronts and sides. And if you turn them, you'll see the backside of the letters. But now we're going to add the vowel of Yesod, foundation, loyalty, pleasure. And we inhale and then exhale, holding the sound as long as we comfortably can, seeing it, not controlling it, but seeing it in your mind's eye on your screen. The Vav with a dot in the middle of the Vav. Inhale and then exhale. Let's do that again. Inhale Pause and exhale. Experience the sound vibrating through your mouth, your lips, your tongue, your cheeks. Now we move again to the left thigh, Hod, splendor, grace under pressure. Now we begin to move again. We move to Hod, which is also U, but it's a subtle difference. The kibbutz, the three dots we see under our Yud, form a team to say, you. Allow yourself to vibrate with the sound. Continue breathing. Now we move to Netzach, the right thigh, a single point with that we know somehow we are bound together by these letters, by these vowels. Now we rise again. We stay with the letter Yi of Netzach. Yi. Allow the names, the letters to suggest themselves to you. Feel the power associated with the sound, the power of eternal victory, the power of my relationship to the eternal. I'm not ashamed of that. I live for that. We must erase all vestiges of societal shame when it comes to religion and our Creator. Now, as you chant, be aware of your screen, because part of the secrets of the names of God, most often, awesome secret, and one that is not spoken of too often, is that when you chant even the simplest of names or letters, you provoke the visual center of the mind from hearing to seeing, and so that you should see things as we chant. Try to be aware if images come to mind, what they suggest to you, where they take you. Who do they relate to? Whatever images come to mind. So we begin again to rise from Netzach up to Tiferet, the Cholam. We sound out the letter Yud and Hey in the form of Yo, 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 Yo. And Yo is the power of truth, of beauty, of balance. Do you feel balanced between your higher and your lower self, between your right and your left, between your joy and your sadness? Can I find those center points? Yo, yo. Now we move further up the tree to Gvora, strength, power, resistance, blocking. Yeah, 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 yeah. If you see anything, just record it. Remember it. Yeah, yeah. This short blocking sound has power behind it. The next vow, we move to Chesed. Yeah. We can again address the issue of beginning and middle and end. Well, we have before us a time, a place to see what will God show us in our mind's eye when we chant, yeah, Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah. See the shift. Yeah. The word yeah in English is receptive. It's affirmative. It's powerful and positive. Yeah. 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 That's so too. We move up the tree of life again to the power of joy. Bina, the upper mother. And what is her vow? Yay. Yay. Affirmative. A powerful affirmation. Yay. Joy. Yay. Therein lies the conduit of joy. Yay. As we chant that, feel the agreeableness, the idea of yes, yay, sure. That is the power of reception. The left brain receives before it can give to the Sefirot below it. Yay. Yay. Now we move over to the right brain. Wisdom. Yeah. 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 And then we leap to the highest level of all, the crown above the head of the king, where we find intrinsically the quality of awe. Yeah. 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 Think of it as a sound of unification, including everything around it. Yeah. So this night, like all other nights, is attached to Shabbat and attached to our souls. Yo, yo. Relate to the absolute crown of creation, which is God's name itself. The name is a created thing. Yeah, yeah, You're calling on ancient wisdom to seep down the channels of our minds. And so we have traversed the entire tree. Continue with your meditation if you desire. If you feel as if you want to continue, you should. So now we're going to emerge from our meditation to our conscious selves. Imagine you're digging a tunnel deep into the earth. And yet we cannot dig forever. But follow the letters as they move with their vowels. And if they move in your head or in your screen, follow them. So now we will be satisfied with what we've done, even if we see no results. The principles are sound, the experience is great, and we'll just have to wait. God may bless you all. Let's return from the meditation. Let's return to our breath, our lifeline, the holy breath. Sometimes the most shocking is opening the eyes. So we receive that power in return. We look through the eyes. We prepare to fully return to our bodies, to be able to walk, to run, to move. Remember these names, their vowels. Remember your experience. Write it down right now. And we'll talk about it in just a moment. Okay. I'm trying to be here. How are you all doing? Zev? Now is the challenge of just speaking, of what to say. But really, the success of these things is by long-term practice. My goal has been to introduce many techniques so that each person will find what works for them. So pay attention to what comes up. Even if you think nothing comes up, pay attention to it. Because it's all bound into our experience. Okay. It's about 2:00. We have some more time. Shabbat Shalom, Rhonda from Toronto. And Shabbat Shalom to Miriam del Carmen Saavedra from Tampico, Mexico. I see, Cindy, you wrote, you almost fell asleep. You know, can be a gift, because controlling the idea of sleep is a big part of what we're doing here. But it's subconscious, and it's not something it is something we can consciously work on. But the whole idea of Jewish meditation is to leave the control frame and allow ourselves to be controlled by a higher place. And how do you know that? Because you stop trying to control. You start to either feel like you're sleeping or just spacing out and not seeing, and all of a sudden you see something and you hear something. And oftentimes those moments contain teachings, disembodied teachings from the past. Okay. Well, I didn't sleep all that many hours all night, so this was a mini vacation. Very good, Cindy. It's true. The more you meditate, the less you need to sleep. Because the whole point of sleep and all these things is to enter alpha and theta, different levels of consciousness, which are layers of soul in Kabbalistic language. And whether we're measuring the vibration through Hebrew letters or through some type of high-tech instrument, the proof is in our experience. That cannot be changed. Okay, Michael writes, hi, Rabbi. We're almost done. That's true, Michael. We are almost done. Oh, we're already past 90 minutes? No. We started at 1. Oh, I guess we are. Sorry. I know we have another class starting here on the Lighthouse, thank God. And well, what can I tell you? Time is a flexible concept. But I do want to wish all of you a Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue next week with more interesting ideas from the world of Kabbalah and meditation. Keep practicing. Find your place in the practice. Find your level and work it, and you will receive more and more. So God bless you all, and Shabbat Shalom.